Well, it was referred to as the golden period of harness racing through the late 60s into the 70s, under the ribbon of light at Harold Park, and all those great names of Kevin Newman, Laurie Moles, all the great horses, covered by some of the greatest harness racing journalists of that particular period and beyond, commencing with Billy Whittaker, Wayne Gallagher, Des Corliss, from the Fairfax organisation. And from News Limited, we had the likes of Harry Pearce, Ken Harkness, and also my next guest, Billy Ellis. Well, Bill, it certainly was a great period of harness racing. I don't think we'll ever see the likes of it again. You must have some very fond memories of those days.
Oh, absolutely, Mick. It was, as you said, it was halcyon days, and these days there is just so much competition for not only harness racing but all sport, and all of us that are in administration of any of the sporting organisations, we're all battling for the dollar and the people bums on seats and so forth. But I don't think that we will ever see those days again. Well, certainly won't see those days again. But they're fond memories, though. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned the Fairfax organisation, also New Zealand, and of course, in between we had the flagship of harness racing as far as the media was concerned, the National Trot Guide.
Yes, it was. Of course, it wasn't national then, but that's where I started, and actually a lot of us who ended up with much higher profiles started off with the names that you mentioned, Bill Whittaker, Harry Pearce, myself, and Ken Harkness. Even Greg Radley. Greg Radley spent a bit of time in his early days at the Trot Guide. So it was a sort of a nursery, a launching pad for some of us. And but I doubt if any of us thought when we were young fellas at the Trot Guide that we would get to where we ended up being. Yeah.
Bill, was always going to be journalism for you, and also in particular racing?
Well, actually, not really, Michael. I was looking for some sort of a job during school holidays. I was still going to school, and get a little bit of pocket money, and I was taken by a fellow schoolmate to an office, actually the newsletter, which was in opposition to the Sportsman, which is the only racing paper these days, the newsletter, and I just wanted to run messages or something in between school holidays, school, and the editor there, famous journalist Fred Coghlan, who was probably better known throughout Australia and internationally as the Mug Punter. That was his nom de plume. But he asked me to sit down and write a few notes and things, and then he said, "Well, look," he said, "I can't fit you in my place, but he said I'll send you across to the Trot Guide," which was only across the road, and then I started there during school holidays. Then I went back to school, and then as I came towards the end of my schooling days, the powers that be there, the organisation, got in touch with my mother and asked if I could go and join them. They put me straight onto a cadetship. So I served my cadetship there, and I think I was out for about 12 months, and it was coinciding with the beginning of the TAB. The TAB came in 1964. And I was headhunted to the Packer organisation, Consolidated Press, Daily Telegraph. They were looking for somebody who knew something about harness racing to come on and cover harness racing for the Daily Telegraph. So I went there, and my first paycheck, I think, was almost double what I was getting I was offered a contract, and paycheck was almost double what I was earning at the Trot Guide, so it's pretty hard to turn it down.
How long did you cover harness racing for, Billy?
Well, as I said, I started in 1964, and I worked after the Telegraph. Well, always worked for the Telegraph from then on, and Telegraph was sold. The masthead was sold to Rupert Murdoch in 1972, and I transferred from the Packer organisation to News Limited with full entitlements. So I was at the Daily Telegraph for 44 years.
Bill, I had the great pleasure of starting off my career under the guidance of Billy Whittaker with the Herald and also with the Sun. And then I joined News Limited with the Sportsman, courtesy of Barry Parks, and then had the great honour of working with both yourself, Harry Pearce and Ken Harkness. One thing that struck me was the great friendship amongst all those harness racing journalists in that media room of a Friday night.
Yeah, well, you're right, Michael. Even our competitors, Bill Whittaker and I take that era. Bill Whittaker was the Herald. Harry Pearce was the Daily Mirror, and I was the Telegraph. And we're all in competition with each other, but we're all great mates. And, of course, Bill is gone now, God rest his soul. Harry's still around, and I only spoke to him yesterday, actually. But we were still mates, and that camaraderie just doesn't exist these days.
And all three, their respective wives, also turn up on a Friday night.
Yes, and my wife is still here tonight. Barbara, Harry's wife, doesn't get to the races, or nor does Harry very often these days. But my wife is here tonight. I drag her along every Saturday night when I'm here. But she mixes in with the wives of the other directors and mingles sometimes with other wives of members. Yeah.
Bill, do you have a famous story as far as a scoop is concerned, or just a story that you unveiled that meant so much to you?
Oh, well, for as far as a scoop, it's actually strange. It was from a greyhound meeting, a tiny little greyhound meeting, one Saturday afternoon at Richmond. No, actually, yes, it was. It started with a harness racing meeting, but ended up with a dog meeting. The story, I had to keep on it for a week, but it was a group or a syndicate of punters came down from Brisbane or Queensland, and in those days, the punter was guaranteed money back. Sometimes you'd have a race where a favourite, after the taxes were deducted, if you put $1 on, you only got 70 cents back or 75 cents back, even if your dog won or horse won, because the tax was taken out, and that was crazy. You backed the winner and you lost money. When you collected, you lost money. So this group came down from Brisbane and turned up at this race meeting at Richmond. And before the first race, they walked in and deposited something like $150,000. So they had credit in the totalisator, and they were going to bet against that. And what they were doing, they were having a large bet, probably 20 or 30,000 on the favourite. You'd expect that the favourite would run in the first three, and have 5 or 6,000 on some other horse or dog which might run into a place. So they were going to get their dividend from that, and their money back instead of the other 70 cents or whatever was legislated. So the tote lost money. They were losing, and it wasn't the tote. The government was losing money. It didn't take very long for the legislation to be changed. I think might have been the Monday or Tuesday later, the rules were changed where you didn't get your money back. So that was a scoop. I had the front page of the Sunday Telegraph and spilled inside. So that was a bit of a coup.
Well, this may be a tough question because there's such a great pool to pick from, but your champion trainer driver of that particular period, also your favourite horse.
Well, my favourite horse was Halcyon until Popular Arm came along. I just thought he was magnificent to look at, and he was such a competitor, and even since then, I think he's still number one in my book. I know we live in different eras, times are different, but he was my favourite horse. As far as competitors, trainers, drivers, well, I suppose I'm biased, but Cyril Catherine was my favourite driver. I don't think I've seen, even before or since, I've seen a better driver. Some of the things which I saw him do, both as a driver and a trainer with horses, was just unbelievable. Sometimes I'd see him do things in a race, and I said, well, why did you? I'd ask him afterwards, why did you do that? And he immediately explained why he did what he did. Sometimes things came off, and sometimes they didn't. But and he was a great educator too, because I learned a lot from him before I took off driving. Actually, he dragged me into driving. I was never really interested in driving. I loved working with the horses and driving track work, but wasn't really interested in driving in races. And even getting a license back in those days, you didn't need a license to be working with horses. These days, even though I held an A-grade license since 1969 till I handed in 2007. I can't walk down into the stables now and touch a horse because I don't have a license. And it's not me that will get into trouble. It's the trainer of that horse that has to explain to the stewards why an unlicensed person is actually touching a horse. But as I say, times have changed, and I can understand that. In these days, we have to have regulations, rules and regulations, and certainly if you're licensed, you're covered by insurance, whereas in those days and now I really probably wonder why I did hop into the cart and work on the track with some of those young horses that I was involved with, and I could have easily been hurt and wouldn't have been covered by insurance, but that's one thing I can really understand why those things happen these days.
Bill, have you enjoyed the move from journalism now to a director here at Club and Angle?
Well, it's certainly a big change in direction. You see now, you appreciate some of the things. I mean, obviously, when I was a journalist, you'd sometimes fall out of favour with administrators. But now the boot's on the other foot, and I can see a lot of things. It is certainly different, and explains to me why some things happened in the past. I'm enjoying it. I've learnt a heck of a lot about certainly things that I never knew existed in the administration, and. Anybody who is involved in the administration of this industry, apart from those that employed by Harness Racing New South Wales, like our directors, the directors or the board of directors of the New South Wales Harness Racing Club, it's a multi-million-dollar business, and it's all voluntary.
Well, Bill, as I said at the start, harness racing, I've been very lucky to have so many wonderful journalists, and we've got this wonderful tribute to many of them behind us, and no doubt harness racing certainly owes you a great deal of debt for the involvement you had in promoting the industry as well as you did.
Thank you very much, Michael.